Hello there, my name is Fizard, and in this video I want to share my thought and my experience playing Path of Exile 1 for the first time. A little bit of context, I had about 50 hours in Path of Exile 1 during patch 3.29. By the time I started this experience, I had already played 1000 hours of Path of Exile 2, so I thought I understood at least some of the basics of Path of Exile 1. In fact, I thought that 1000 hours in PoE 2 would be enough to understand pretty much everything. Well, I was clearly wrong. 14 years of Path of Exile 1 development definitely did not go to waste, and the sheer number of mechanics and encounters packed into the game is honestly overwhelming. I'll be talking about my impression and my experience in the same order that I experienced them. So, let's start with the build, since I chose it before any of the main events even started. If you search Path of Exile 1 started builds on YouTube, you will find an absolutely massive number of builds for pretty much every taste imaginable. But there was one name that always came to mind whenever Path of Exile 1 was mentioned, at least for me. And this name was Cyclone. I knew it was a solid build that you could start almost any league with. I also understood that Cyclone was fairly simple, so I would not have to pay too much attention to the build itself. It would just work no matter what. And in the end, I can confirm that all of those assumptions turn out to be true. The next things every player has to deal with is the campaign. I will probably call it different things through this video, campaign or sometimes the acts. I don't know where this idea came from. Maybe I heard it on some streams, but I was convinced that the act in PoE 1 were much shorter than the acts in Path of Exile 2. And what I would definitely finish them in 2 streams, it's about 10 hours. But reality quickly proved me wrong. I only managed to finish the final act after 15 hours of gameplay. But that was not even a whole story. I decided not to do all the side quests because the side quests in Act 1 didn't seem particularly useful, and I really did not want to spend even more time to the campaign. Because of that, I missed a ton of stuff through the acts, most of Pantheon points, and quite a few passive points on the skill tree. If one of my viewers had not helped me, I would not even have realized that I have missed anything, let alone figure out where it find all of it. The game does not absolutely nothing to help you with this information. In Path of Exile 2, these additional points are shown on the map, so at least you can track them visually. Jonathan mentioned in one of his interviews that they want to improve the visual presentation of these things in Path of Exile 2. So, this aspect is already handled better in the second game and will apparently be improved even further in the future. So, let's talk about how long the acts actually are. When playing through the campaign for the first time in both games, I both spent roughly the same amount of time, but the campaign in the first game felt a little too long to me. The last few acts were pretty boring, and I just wanted to finish them as quick as possible. Most likely, this is because you go through the same route twice. Sure, you do it in the different order, and the maps are changed, but it's still basically the same things again. And yeah, Path of Exile 2 had exactly the same problem with repetition back in patch 0.3, and the campaign felt just as dragged out to me. There is last one thing I wanted to mention about the Path of Exile 1 campaign. The mostly annoying mechanics I've ever encountered in the game. Fucking doors. There are so many of them, and they are so damn confusing, it's just impossible. I was raging at them through the entire campaign, and honestly, I'm still raging at them now. Controlling my character with the mouse was already an adventure because I was used to play VRSD in Path of Exile 2. But those fucking doors. I don't even have enough words in my native language to describe how much I fucking hate this fucking doors. I'm not going to talk about too much about VISD versus mouse movement. It's really a matter of personal preference. I can say that by the end of my 50 hours in Path of Exile 1, I had completely gotten used to play with mouse controls. The next things every player has to deal with, and something I struggle with quite a bit, it's sockets and links on items. In patch 3.29, GGG finally made this system a little easier and removed the requirement to match specific socket colors. And that's actually one of the reasons when I decided to try Path of Exile 2 in the first place. Sockets and links are pretty unique system that make Path of Exile 1 stand out from the other action RPGs. At the same time, though, I think the system is quite complicated and, in my opinion, does not really fit into a more traditional RPG progression system. Sockets, color, links can slow down your progression quite a lot, at least from my experience. For example, I could not craft or even find a single 6 links. If it had not been for any of my viewers who made a 6 link for me using the crafting bench, I would have finished my entire 50 hours without one of them. In the end, the Path of Exile 2 system feels much more intuitive to me. You can also increase the number of sockets without relying on RNGs simply by buying the appropriate item from the market. You don't have to go searching for some crafting bench recipe like you do it in the first game. If I'm wrong about any of these thoughts, what I already said, you feel free to correct me in the comment section down below. And now I want to talk about something that I really liked, the passive skill tree. When I opened Path of Exile 2 skill tree for the first time, I was really surprised. Obviously, this is not the kind of surprise you get from UC Passive 3 for the very first time. It's more likely a mixture of surprise and excitement. Path of Exile 1 3 feels more compact and more concentrated to me, with each part having a bigger impact on character progression. That's roughly half as many travel nodes in the Path of Exile 1 3, Path of Exile 1 3, which means that each of these nodes give you twice as many attributes. This reduces the overall amount of unnecessary travel through the tree, and I really like that. Another feature of this tree is the mastery system. I think this system is really interesting and it adds a lot of depth and flexibility to the tree. With masteries, you can solve small problem your build might have at different point in your progression. You can add more damage, improve your defenses, whatever your build need in that particular moment. It's really convinced and it scales nicely into the end game. The only things I really dislike about the tree is the predefined attribute nodes. In Path of Exile 2, you can choose which attribute you want to take when you travel through the tree, and that makes the Path of Exile 2 experience much smoother both during the campaign in the early to mid end game. In Path of Exile 2, I spent quite a lot of time struggling with the lack of attributes. Overall, I really like the Path of Exile 1 tree. Compared to it, the Path of Exile 2 tree looks like a huge pile of disconnected nodes. GGG have promised a major balance patch and an overall system polish in the upcoming 0.5.5 patch. So I really hope the passive tree is the one of the list as well. In my opinion, if you combine the best part of these two versions of the passive tree, you would end up with something absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to keep some balance in this video, so after talking about something that I really loved, I have to talk about something I dislike just as much. And the thing I was basically raging about every second was mapping. No, I'm not talking about the maps themselves or the map layout, I'm talking about the structure of mapping. Since GGG made the maps in PoE 2 bigger, they added checkpoint system to to compensate for that. And this system, or rather the lack of it in Path of Exile 1, caused me the most frustration. Because I had small experience and died a lot, especially to the bosses, I had to run through the entire empty map from the beginning every single time just to get back to the boss. It was boring and took a huge amount of time. On one of the map, I had to do this 6 times in a row. So yeah, not exactly a great experience. Checkpoints are therefore one of the best additions in Path of Exile 2. And while they are quite as useful during the campaign, they are huge quality of life improvement when it comes to mapping. And finally, let's talk about the Atlas. GGG decided not to simply copy themselves, so Path of Exile 2 launched with the Infinity Atlas. And in many interviews after Early Access launch, they made it pretty clear that this concept on an Infinity Atlas is not going anywhere, and that they want to perfect it. And honestly, after spending a huge amount of time in this Atlas, I am pretty happy with it in patch 0.5. In Path of Exile 2, of course. It's fun to explore because we have all these randomly appear things called anomalies. They look like this, and in order to access them, you need to complete a certain number of maps. Inside these anomalies, you have a chance to get extremely vulnerable currency or super gems. All of this makes the Atlas really interesting. First, you get that little hit on happiness and cortisol when you discover an anomaly on the Atlas. When you extremely farm, you wait over it, and finally, you get some experience, little piece of loot. And finally, you get some expensive little piece of loot at the end, and suddenly all the happiness, cortisol, dopamine gets multiplied to the maximum. At least it's worked for me. As you can probably tell, I really love the Path of Exile 2 Atlas. The Path of 1 Atlas, it's completely different story. You can see the entire map in front of you, and you get to choose exactly what type of map you want to farm. You can even choose which divination card you are missing right now. The Atlas mechanics are placed in specific areas, and you basically just needed to find the key to access of them. The anomalies are placed in specific areas, and you basically just need to find the key to access them. If I'm not mistaken, certain types of loot are tied to specific map types, which makes being able to choose the map type beforehand pretty important. Because of that, the Path of Exile 1 Atlas feels a little boring to me, and it feels like there's no real goal. Most likely, this opinion comes from the fact that I simply don't know the game well enough and don't understand the farming patterns yet. If I continued play Path of Exile 1 and went deeper into it, my opinion would probably change. But right now, after 50 hours, the Path of Exile Atlas 3 boring and emotionally empty to me. So, over these 50 hours, I managed to farm and spend around 5 divine orbs. I had 2 6 links. One of them was created by my chatters. Yeah, I bought a couple of unique items what I needed, and I even got a new variation of Cyclone skill. So overall, this was definitely some character progression happening. I was not just standing still. I heard a lot of people complaining about the ground loot in this league, but basically all my currency came from the drop, from the floor, so I didn't really experience that problem myself. So, that's what my first 50 hours on Path of Exile 1 felt like. This video is my first attempt at putting all my impression together into some resemblance as essay. Maybe the video ended up feeling a little rough and not particularly deep, but on the one hand, I really wanted to talk about everything what I experienced, and on the other hand, I really did not want to turn this video a 2 hours long boring video, which is something I'm pretty good at doing. Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 currently feel like 2 very similar but already quite different games to me. and that's despite the fact that Path of Exile 2 has not even officially launched yet and still has ton of new content coming. I think I will remain Path of Exile 2 player, but I would definitely be happy to come back in Path of Exile 1 in one of the next leaks. Maybe I could even make another video about my first 150 hours on Path of Exile 1 and go much deeper in the different endgame mechanics. I hope you enjoy this video. I would love to hear what you guys think about all this in the comments. And you feel free to drop my stream so we can talk about all of this live. See you!